Yep, it's 11 on the dot, so we've got a little buffer time. We can wait a minute or two for people to catch on.
Perfect. And I'll just say it again. Thanks everybody for those that have joined already. We'll give it a few minutes before we get started, before we kick it off, as a few folks are joining. But thanks for taking some time with us today.
Sorry about that, Ken. That was my fault.
What's that?
Oh, yeah, you could hear the echo. I was playing us live. It's cool.
That's meta.
Yeah, exactly.
Our first LinkedIn Live. So I think we've worked all the bugs out behind the scenes, and we got it rolling.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get things kicked off. Thanks again to everybody who's joining us live, and thanks to those who are joining us after the fact. You might not know either way, whether you're live or after the fact if you're watching this. But thanks either way for joining. I'm Ken. I'm joined by my colleagues Mike and Rudy, and we're with Secchi. For those that don't know, Secchi is an employee engagement software, and we make doing the right thing and the easy thing one and the same. So you can let great workers do great work. We'll get into a little bit more about what Secchi does at the end of the presentation, but the focus of our presentation today is on recognition and how that can affect attendance. And just a housekeeping item for those that are joining live, please feel free to comment. You can comment live. We'll try to respond as much as we can, but your interaction is encouraged, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say. All right, so let's go to the topic at hand and talk about what late to great and how recognition boosts workforce attendance. We're going to dive deep into this topic today. I do want to kick it off with some data, with a study. One of the many studies around this topic is that over 40% of employees say that they don't receive enough recognition in their job. So I'll restate that. It's nearly half of the workforce says that they don't receive recognition on enough recognition on a day-to-day basis. That's really what we're going to be focusing on today. And Mike, I know you have some other thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think from my experience, like the biggest thing that I ran into over and over and over again is 65 plus facilities. Not every one of them did an engagement survey every year, but employee opinion surveys, employee satisfactions, we do Survey Monkey surveys, whatever. Throw all the surveys together and aggregate them. And what you'll find is top three, supervisors believe that they're good at recognizing people, and employees believe supervisors are bad. And there's a huge disconnect between the experience and the perception of leaders. And so that brings us to the challenge of that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and our goal today is to give you an idea of what we've done with a customer, and the challenges here should be pretty relatable to all sorts of industry, to all sorts of organizations. And we want to talk about how we approach this challenge, how the customer approached the challenge, and we'll give you some actions that you can take, some simple strategies. We're not saying it's simple to implement. We'll give you some things that'll make it a little bit simpler, but that you can take away and make a difference right away in your organization. So like Mike mentioned, here's the challenge that we're going to talk about. We did this case study with one of our customers, which is a 400-person employee logistics facility. They're part of a larger Fortune 500 company. And they found themselves challenged in a number of ways. One of those challenges was attendance issues. They didn't know who was going to show up every day. There were some turnover issues, so engagement, and leadership playing the blame game amongst each other. So some of those challenges, we'll just call them out. You can see them here on the screen. People showing up late for a shift, no call, no shows. We all know that that happens. We mentioned the turnover issues. HR had become the bad guy. Mike, I'm gonna ask you to expound on that a little bit.
Yeah.
HR won't let me do what I need to do. We've all heard these things. So these are some of the challenges that this customer had. Mike?
Yeah, I don't know if this picture does enough justice to the chaos that happens at the 30 minutes before every shift and 30 minutes after. So that hour of when you're leading people at scale, when you're leading deskless employees, they typically need some type of direction at the beginning of the day or need some type of communication. And if you just do a day in the life of, if you just follow somebody around, where you see the pain it is to not know who's going to show up. And I like calling it the lottery because you really don't know on any given day who's going to call off. And being able to control that and understand the expectation, reliability of your people drives productivity. So why not set up your system to drive reliability? And if your current this is a Fortune 500 company example. They have the best systems in the world, most expensive HRIS, most expensive payroll system, but they still had problems with that unexpected who's going to be here today, who's not. And then I get blamed in HR. My background's HR, so I get blamed. You recruit bad people. And then I point at the supervisor and go, you're a bad supervisor, and operations doesn't take care of their people, and you didn't train them well. Well, HR's just, it's all a bunch of blame game that doesn't do anybody good. When the problem has to do with the expectations and reliability of the employee that shows up.
Yep, and I love the I'll add your trademark to this at some point, but it's the who's here lottery.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, we're spinning that, or bingo, you're spinning that like that big ball thing, and the ball rolls out. Oh, it's Jeremy today. He called off.
So the solution, we're going to talk about the solution in two parts. And the first part of the solution is really the big concept. It's creating a culture of recognition. So at this customer, making that shift to from a reactive and discipline-focused leadership stance to a proactive, recognition-focused leadership stance. And key to this too is frequent and meaningful recognition. And Mike, I know this is where you have a lot of thoughts on the frequent and meaningful recognition side of things.
Yeah, this is where this is experience versus what I've experienced versus the studies. So when we talk about recognition, you have a supervisor meeting. Hey guys, recognition, we need to improve it. Our survey says we need to improve recognition. I recognize people all day. I don't know what you're talking about, Mike. I recognize people all day. And I'm like, I talk to people. I don't know how I can do it any better because I recognize them. And our perception as leaders is we're pretty good at recognition. I even think I'm good at recognition. And the idea of what people experience is not the same. So this is where we get in this idea of like, find the little things, because the reality is we get to reinforce the right behaviors through that frequent and meaningful. So I feel like it's standard to know you got to do it immediately after something's done. But I also think the meaningfulness can be meaningful for super small items. We say thank you when the doors open. Why do we not say thank you when somebody, cleans up an area they didn't have to? Well, I saw you clean the break room. You didn't have to do that. I saw you pushing all the chairs. You didn't have to do that. I saw you volunteer to help, Missy take her stuff to the car. Like those type of things, being frequent and training your brain to identify those is a game changer at the front lines. And the way you train it is documenting.
Yeah, documentation is key to it, Mike. Just like the we're all used to, we learned it back in middle school or high school, the conditional operant behavior, where when we were younger as children, or for those of us that have children or dogs, we train with that positive reinforcement. You teach the dog to sit, and they get that treat over and over and over again, and then they understand that that is the right way to do something. We've all seen, or we've all had a teacher or a coach when we were younger, or with our own children or family, that really does a good job of positively reinforcing and rewarding those positive behaviors. And instead of just being that criticizer and finding and pointing out the mistakes or the things that we're doing wrong. And there's value to that, but there's way more value in reinforcing over and over those positive behaviors instead of just pointing out the bad.
Yep. Well said. And praise goes a lot further than criticism. And that could really wrap up a lot of what we just said here. So that's the first part of the solution. Mike and Rudy, you had both alluded to the second part of the solution, which we'll talk about now. And that's the data, and creating data so that you can measure and begin to manage what you're doing in terms of recognition. So real-time documentation of both the good and the bad. So that means documenting in the moment, encouraging leaders to document in the moment what that recognition is, to give the employees something tangible to take with them that says, hey, I did something good. I have something to hang my hat on here. The second point is measure and share those results. So make sure that you're measuring the recognition, but make it public, share it. Who's your top recognizer? Who's the person that gets recognized the most? And then that'll start to create some friendly competition and allow for some gamification. We'll talk about gamification a little bit later, but competition and gamification of what you're doing in terms of recognition.
Yeah, I love Ken, the measure and share the results you mentioned. This is kind of the meta thought is like recognizing the recognizers. So who is good at recognizing, sharing how they're doing it, and then reinforcing it with the rest of the team. Because the reality is it's not natural. I mean, maybe a small percentage of people it's natural, but being able to see the data of, oh, this is how Joe recognized people. Look at Joe. He breaks it down. He's specific. He engages his people. He asks them how they like to be recognized. This guy is really into it. All right, I need to copy him. I need to take that and put it on another shift. And even your grumpiest of leaders, and even your folks that you could say are negative, they'll get a kick out of recognition if you can get them rolling on it.
For sure. So we're not just doing recognition for the sake of doing recognition. There are huge results that come with this. And what I love about our results is these results are, the numbers here on the screen are specific to this customer, but we're seeing this amongst many of our customers. This is a theme. This is a trend. This is a big topic because it gets big results. And the results are, in this case, a 45% reduction in unexcused attendance events. So that means as you create that culture of recognition, your unexcused attendance events will go down. And even bigger is we had a 69% decrease in disciplinary actions. So simply said, the more good, so as recognition goes up, the bad stuff goes down. More good, less bad. And here it is shown very, very clearly in our data.
Yeah, and I'm going to add some, data tells one story. The feeling is not shown in the data. So you can't, the qualitative piece of this data is knowing the people involved and knowing how the data got here. And the lines are the rounded off trends, 3-week trends. And you can see in November, it's done by week. You can see in November, there's a huge spike up. I'm going to say, I wasn't there on site, but I'm going to say it's related to being thankful around Thanksgiving. There's a lot of recognition about, hey, I'm glad you're part of the team. I'm grateful for you here. all those things. And then it dropped a little bit during the holiday break and Christmas and all the people being out of the office. And then it ramped right up. You see the giant spike up. And here's what happened is a leader put measurements on the front line, or excuse me, the HR leader put measurements on the frontline employees and said, guys, I want you all to really put in the work on recognizing your people, and we're going to see what happens. And look what happens, guys. It's common sense. This isn't rocket science. I'm not bringing a rocket back from the moon and putting it on that, landing it like Elon. This is simple stuff. This is thank you for sharing. Thank you for training. Thank you for leading the safety talk. Thank you for speaking up about this issue. Thank you for hitting your numbers today. Wow, you've done a great job. That increase decreases all the time. That increase in recognition at 220%, 224%, decrease the attendance. So think about how many instances, and we're talking on the volume here, 40 people. If you get 40 people to show up a week, what does that do to your numbers? What does that do to your facility? And they like being there. And so you get 40 more people to show up on top of the behaviors you're recognizing, on top of reducing disciplines by 69%. So they cut down those discipline meetings, which you have to have the meeting before the meeting. You got to get the manager on board. You got to get HR. All that is gone. It's non-value add. It's gone. So when I hear leaders go, I want to hold on to these recognitions. I don't want to give them out. I want to hold on to them. What are you thinking, man? We can decrease our attendance infractions by 45%. And we can get 40 more people here a week, 50 more people here a week. It's mind-blowing how simple this is. Mind-blowing.
Yeah. And it leads to productivity after the fact. So, step one, like Mike just described, is that positive reinforcement has people wanting to show up to work on time. They feel warm when we recognize them for doing those good things. And then second step is productivities and efficiencies. Not only are people showing up to work on time or being there every day like they should be, but now they're working harder. They're working more efficiently. We have examples with supervisors. There's a facility with 15 supervisors. And when they looked at their own data, one supervisor goes, well, if I recognize too much, it gets a little saturated, or it doesn't have as much of an impact if I'm kind of doing attaboys and calling people out for the good things they do all the time. And as we look through the data, he then turned ship and goes, holy cow, if I see these other 3 supervisors within my facility, they do the most recognizing within our facility, and their 3 departments or lines or shifts are the most productive within the facility. So it is directly correlated, where you cannot do enough and every bit of it matters. And the more you do it, the better your workforce is, not only showing up on time, but also their outputs.
Yeah, I'm going to tell the audience, screenshot this if you're watching it. Screenshot this, and you take it to your ops manager and go, "Hey, I got an idea. It's simple. It doesn't cost you much or anything. It's like, hey, we're going to recognize people, and we're going to do it consistently with discipline and measurement." And the ops manager. I mean, let's look at the chart. 40. The peak there is 130. 130 attendance infractions down to 40 in a 400-person facility. 100. That is so much productivity.
All right. So why does this work? We gave some anecdotes, but there's data behind it, and there's a lot of data. We'll share one of those. Is that recognized employees are 41% more likely to show up to work. So that's 41% more likely if you're recognized. That's huge. The second point here, recognition starts to foster a sense of team and encourages others to follow suit. We talk about friendly competition. We talk about a little friendly peer pressure, and that's what we're looking at here. And in the moment recognition and accountability. coupled with real-time documentation, ensures behavior reinforcement. So doing that in real time, reinforcing that in real time makes all the difference. So how can you do this? If as I start reading, you don't realize this slide is tongue-in-cheek, I'm going to tell you that up front. But how can you do this? First, you can ask your IT team to drop everything and create a new SharePoint site that nobody's ever going to go to. You can ask for, you can budget for another FTE or maybe two to assist you with managing that SharePoint site. But then you need another FTE because nobody's going to go to that SharePoint site. And then people are just going to give you pieces of paper with the recognition that they've logged. And then you need an FTE to input that into a spreadsheet on a daily basis. And then you're going to update your resume because this is never going to work and you're going to lose your job. So how can you actually do this? You can find a tool for real-time recognition and accountability that's purpose-built for frontline leaders. There's our commercial. That's Secchi. We gave you some actionable ways that you can do this. So you can encourage a culture of recognition, that frequent and meaningful recognition. And you can measure and create friendly competition amongst leaders and employees. Who are your top recognizers? Who are those employees that are recognized the most? And keep that going. It's not a one-time thing. This is an ongoing thing that will help you sustain that culture of recognition and that culture of accountability. And
it's really fun because the leaders that are tasked with or are responsible for, and it sounds like it's part of a job duty, but it's not. The leaders that are doing the recognizing have smiles on their faces all day long because those folks that they are giving the recognitions to are grateful for it. There's so many examples of people saying, "Hey, thanks. I really appreciate you, saying those things," or "I appreciate you actually noticing." So it's full circle, and it makes everybody feel better, work better, and just get along even more productively within that work environment.
Finally, how you can actually do this. Again, talk to us. We have our purpose-built tool for fostering that culture of recognition, making it super easy for a leader to do the right thing. So we want to make doing the right thing and the easy thing one and the same, and we do that with Secchi, whether it's giving recognition, giving coaching, or having those accountability conversations. So thank you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us live if you're with us currently, and thanks for watching this after the fact if you watch the recording. If you have any questions, you can see our information there. You can reach out directly to us. We're on all the socials. We're on LinkedIn, of course. If you have any questions, want to talk about how we can help you put this into action, don't hesitate to reach out. But thanks everybody, and we look forward to talking and hearing from you all.
Yeah, more people work, less paperwork. See ya.
Thanks, guys.